Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a truly profound psychological paradox. We're looking at one of the most famous narratives in human history, but we're not doing it as religious dogma. Instead, we're looking at it as a brilliant philosophical blueprint for the human condition. We're going to explore the deep alchemy of injustice, how we actually process being wronged, and how an ancient story maps perfectly onto some of the most challenging existential philosophy ever written. So let's start with a fundamental mystery, right? Why on earth does a story about love evoke such incredible outrage? Think about it for a second. The story of Jesus is universally synonymous with concepts like authentic love, radical compassion, and just absolute forgiveness. And yet, when we actually read about or watch the sequence of events, the betrayal, the trial, the totally unjust suffering, it literally makes our blood boil. It awakens this profound sense of revolt inside of us. We feel compassion for sure, but we also feel an intense, burning outrage. And paradoxically, that outrage seems to directly contradict the very teachings of peace that the whole narrative is trying to convey. Section 1. The paradox of injustice, when peace feels like a provocation. Okay, so to really understand this friction, we have to look past the historical debates and treat this text a bit like a classic novel or maybe a wise teacher's parable. It's essentially a mirror reflecting our own emotional dissonance. Because the root of that dissonance is the primal urge to retaliate against injustice. When we see unfairness, it doesn't just offend our polite sensibilities, it trips our deepest evolutionary wires. By human nature, we are literally wired to respond defensively whenever our well-being or our physical integrity is threatened. When you're faced with danger or aggression from someone else, your biological impulse isn't to smile and offer them a warm hug. It's to hit back. It's to retaliate. Section 2. The beast with red cheeks, confronting our evolutionary nature. Well, think about what happens when we're wronged. We instinctively feel this absolute need to respond in kind. We want to punish the wrongdoer, we want to eliminate the evil, and we subconsciously place ourselves right at the exact center of morality. We kind of feel like the scales of good and evil rest entirely in our own hands. And this creates a radical collision. On one side, we have our primal instincts, retaliation, defense, revenge, this burning desire to answer evil with evil. And honestly, it feels entirely natural and justified. But on the other side of the ring, we have the proposed teaching of this narrative. Turn the other cheek, maintain inner peace, and practice complete non-retaliation. I mean, this is a total head-to-head collision between our biological programming and a deeply challenging philosophical call to action. This brings us to a really crucial point. This teaching is actively attempting to calm a very specific inner animal. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche symbolically referred to this part of human nature as the beast with red cheeks. It's that fierce, deeply rooted impulse inside all of us to prove our own righteousness, to aggressively assert the truth, and to react with amplified intensity to absolutely anything that wounds us. It's the animal within that just screams for aggression when faced with aggression. The radical teaching of turning the other cheek, it's designed specifically to tame this exact beast. Section 3. Surrendering the scales, the subtle boundary of authentic faith. Now, stepping down from the judge's bench might actually be the hardest thing a human being can do. In the context of this story, the foundation of authentic faith isn't defined as just blind obedience to some set of rules. It's the active refusal to judge. And the source material actually outlines a highly specific three-step mechanism for how to pull this off. First, you've got to consciously halt that surge of anger and the immediate desire for revenge. Second, you have to adopt an attitude of acceptance and inner peace toward the very thing that appears so hostile to you. And third, and honestly, this is the real psychological leap, you have to recognize that the wrongdoer is themselves part of something much greater, caught in a totally complex web of circumstances and human flaws that they can't even fully control. And this leads us right into this incredibly famous imagery, the innocent one led like a lamb to the slaughter. In the narrative, the protagonist commits absolutely no evil, does only good, and yet is subjected to countless forms of suffering and humiliation, without ever once responding in kind. For anyone analyzing this story, this imagery represents the supreme test. It's a test of the strength of faith through love, actively overriding our rational judgment and our conventional, everyday views of morality. It's this profound invitation to endure the unendurable without letting it corrupt your own soul. Section 4. Embracing Amor, Fati, the philosophical synthesis. So, what looks like passive submission on the surface actually holds a deeply active philosophical power. Enter Amor, Fati. That translates to the love or the embrace of one's fate exactly as it is. Historically, Nietzsche actually criticized the Christian attitude of non-reaction, right? He viewed it as weak compared to the vital will to live, dominate, and manifest power. But here is the fascinating overlap. Nietzsche's own ultimate concept of Amor Fati perfectly aligns with the core teaching of the story. Both of them require acknowledging our ultimate lack of control over what happens to us, and both demand that we allow events to unfold not with bitter resignation, but with a profound, almost joyful acceptance of reality. But let's be real, doing this is a massive challenge for us today. We live in a highly competitive, super individualistic world. Our immediate default setting is to place supreme value on our personal decisions. We fixate constantly on individual responsibility and guilt. We have this insatiable desire to judge, correct, and condemn other people. And honestly, worst of all, we operate on the arrogant assumption that we actually possess the whole picture. We think we see all the angles, which makes surrendering those scales of justice feel incredibly counterintuitive. Section 5. Transforming Evil into Love, a Living Model of Understanding. Ultimately, this philosophical blueprint doesn't promise you the satisfaction of revenge. It doesn't even promise the restoration of what we perceive as a moral balance. Instead, it proposes a truly radical conclusion. Evil becomes irrelevant. In almost every other system of thought, evil has to be fought, defeated, and punished. But here, the evil inflicted by fellow human beings isn't just defeated. By refusing to react with the beast with red cheeks, the whole cycle of violence is broken, and evil is alchemically transformed into a living model of love and radical acceptance. It's a real game changer. So I want to leave you with this question to chew on today. Where in your life are you holding the scales of justice, and how might practicing Amor Fati transform that struggle? Where might you need to calm your own beast with red cheeks? Because if you can just surrender the urge to judge and instead embrace your fate exactly as it is, you might just find that the things causing you the most outrage can actually be transformed into your greatest capacity for love. Thank you so much for joining me on As Explainer, and I'll catch you next time.